Her name was Nancy Jerry. She was 18 years old. September 26th, 1973. She got into a car in Titusville, Florida. She did not come back. Her body was found almost 3 months later in a palmetto thicket. She had been shot in the head. About her life, we know little. About her death, we know one man's description, given 46 years later. This episode is about 5 deaths. There is a word for this, a short word, an old word. It feels obvious, so obvious that we don't usually stop to look at it. Maybe it's time to stop. Nancy Jerry was not the only one. September 26th, 1973. Nancy Jerry, 18. November 5th, a 14-year-old girl. November 14th, a 14-year-old girl. November 15th, a 17-year-old girl. November 17th, Paula Hamrick, 22, a mother. 5 women, 12 weeks, 1 small town. Each of them met the same man, briefly, before they died. A man who was, at the time, 20 years old, married, father of a 5-month-old daughter, an electrician by trade. He lived in the same town as his victims. He is still alive. He is in prison in Florida. He has been there for more than 50 years. In 2019, he gave an interview. He was asked what killing felt like. He answered calmly. He compared it to the passion in one's life, the thing one most wants to do. He said that in that moment, one is so completely there that one can almost see the atoms vibrating. This episode does not try to explain him. This episode asks why we cannot explain him. The word evil seems self-evident and clear. In truth, it has not always existed. In ancient Greece, people asked why human beings harm one another. There was unjust, there was bad, there was base. But the word that clings to us now like a stain, that thick, cosmic, almost living word, was not yet there. The thing was being discussed. The word was not. At the end of the 4th century, a North African bishop named Augustine offered a solution to an old problem. If God is good, where does evil come from? The answer was, from nowhere. Evil is not a thing. It is the absence of good. As darkness is not a thing, but the absence of light. The word we know came later. In 1887, a German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche argued that evil was an invention. It was invented by those who had no power, those who were beaten down. They looked at the strong, and because they could not strike back any other way, they said the strong were evil. The word was a weapon. It spread for 2,000 years. It won. We now use it without thinking that it is something real. That is one view. 40 years later, Hannah Arendt, a Jewish philosopher who had fled Germany, travelled to Jerusalem to watch a trial. The defendant was Adolf Eichmann, a Nazi who had organised the deaths of millions of people. Arendt expected a monster. She saw a grey man who spoke in clichés. She wrote that evil could be dull, that most evil is done without dramatic malice. People who do not think do things that cannot be understood. That is another view. A British psychologist named Simon Baron-Cohen says the entire word is scientifically useless. It should be replaced with a more precise term, the absence of empathy. There is a circuit in the brain that regulates this. In some people, it does not work. To him, that is the entire answer. 4 views, 2,000 years, no single answer. Then we look at one man. His name is Bernard Eugene Giles. Bernard Eugene Giles was born on April 9th, 1953, in Titusville. the same town where he would later kill 5 women. He was the second of 4 children. His parents were law-abiding people. Neighbours remembered them as ordinary. Bernard's friends remembered him as kind. He attended Titusville High School. He showed an interest in the visual arts. He was considered promising. This is the version the town remembers. There is another version. When Bernard was 6 years old, he began to play a game with the neighbour's daughter. In the game, one of them was a witch, and the other one burned her at the stake. Before the burning, the witch was strangled. Bernard did the strangling. The neighbour's daughter was the witch. They played this again and again. He spoke about it himself in 2019 to a British journalist. He used the word thrill. That, he said, was the first time he felt it. At 6. He grew up. He dropped out of school at 16. He trained as an electrician and started working. He met a 17-year-old girl named Leslie Joanne. They married. He began to carry a knife in his pocket. He did not know why. One day, at 16, he was walking down a street. A woman stepped out of her car and walked past him. Bernard felt, in his own words, a powerful, uncontrollable urge to kill her. He walked past. The journalist asked him later, "What if you hadn't walked past?" Bernard answered calmly, "She would have been murdered." That day, he walked past. Over the years that followed, he began to attempt what at 16 he had decided not to do. The attempts failed. Bernard went to work, came home, ate, slept. In July of 1973, his and Leslie's daughter was born. Then came a day that looked ordinary. September 26, 1973. Bernard was 20 years old. He had a wife and a 2-month-old daughter. He had a trade. That day he stopped. Standing before him was an 18-year-old woman named Nancy Jerry. This time, he did not walk past. In 2009, the forensic psychiatrist Michael Stone at Columbia University published an attempt. He had interviewed more than 600 violent offenders over the course of his career. He had listened. He had taken notes. He had grown tired of the word evil because it was too loose. It did not distinguish a person acting in self-defense from a torture killer, and yet the same word was used for both. Stone built a 22-step scale. He called it Gradations of Evil. Level 1, a person who kills in self-defense. Level 11, a psychopathic person who kills those in the way. Level 17, sexually perverse serial murderers. Level 22, a psychopathic torture killer for whom torture itself is the motive. Level 17 is where Ted Bundy resides. He confessed to killing 30 women and girls in the United States between 1974 and 1978. The true number is unknown. In March of 2026, a new victim was identified through DNA evidence, a 17-year-old girl. By the same criteria Stone uses, level 17 is also where Bernard Eugene Giles resides. The same number, the same category. But if a passerby on the street is asked to name serial killers, most will say Bundy. Films have been made about him. Books, documentary series, Netflix productions, academic lectures. About Bernard Giles, there is one interview, given in 2019, by a British journalist. After that, silence. The same category, different visibility. This is not the scale's fault. The scale does not tell us who we choose to remember. It only tells us what has been done. And still, even with a number, even with research, even with 600 cases as a foundation, the number does not tell us why. That is not its purpose. Is it evil? The scale does not answer. It is an attempt to approach the question by organizing it. But organizing is not an answer. September 26th, 1973. Nancy Jerry was 18 years old. Bernard stopped for her. They drove to a remote place. Nancy did not come back. Bernard later described that moment, in his own words, to a British journalist. Very stimulated, very provoked. I mean, the thing is, what is your passion in life? What is the thing you like to do more than anything else? And you're doing it. You are so there that you can almost see the atoms vibrating. It's difficult to describe. His voice was even. He spoke as if of a hobby. Over the next 7 weeks, Bernard sought out 4 more women, all from Brevard County, all hitchhikers. He stopped for them. They got into his car. November 5th, a 14-year-old schoolgirl from Titusville. November 14th, a 14-year-old girl. November 15th, a 17-year-old girl. November 17th, Paula Hamrick, 22. She was a mother. She was on her way to visit her husband. Bernard took each of them to a remote place. He used the same weapon, a .22 caliber pistol. Then Bernard drove home. His wife was waiting. His daughter, a few months old, was asleep. December 9th, 1973. Bernard attempted a 6th. He took 2 14-year-old girls to a remote place. The girls did not obey his commands. They fought back. Bernard raised his weapon. The gun jammed. The girls escaped. They went to the police. They remembered Bernard's name. They had seen it in a book in his car. The next day, Bernard was arrested. His pistol was seized. Ballistic tests linked it to the murder of Nancy Jerry. Bernard denied it at first. Then he confessed to 5 murders. A plea bargain. No death penalty. Life imprisonment. Is it evil? The acts themselves speak. 5 women dead. Planned. Repeated. Sexual. For many, the answer is clear. But what about the one who did it? A child who, at 6, was strangling. A man who spoke of murder as if of a hobby. If something in him was broken, if he was not well, is he evil or is he ill? To some, the acts need no other word. Evil is clear. To others, the same acts reveal a child who was already strangling at 6. A man who spoke about killing as if it were a hobby. Something was broken. Is that the same as evil, or is it illness? And to some, both are true at once. Evil and illness, together. But perhaps even that is too easy. In 1974, the state of Florida tried to answer. It had a law for this. It had a category. It had a word it had written for people exactly like him. In 1973, Florida's statute book contained Chapter 917. It described a person who was a mentally disordered sex offender. The legal definition was precise. A person who is not insane, but who has a mental disorder and who is considered dangerous to others because of a propensity to commit sex offences. Not insane. Sane. But something was broken, and from that, danger followed. The premise of the law was that something was treatable. A judge had a duty to use the procedure if the criteria were met. The person was assessed by psychiatrists. If the criteria were met, he was directed to treatment, not to prison. Bernard Giles was assessed in 1974. He met the criteria. He was classified. He was sent to prison. The judge looked at the case and decided that the treatment path was too light, that the deaths of 5 women weighed too heavily against the category's promise, that the promise of treatment was empty. but the classification remained on file. In 1995, a 9-year-old boy was abducted in South Florida. He was murdered. His parents began to campaign for a new law, a law that would bear their son's name. In 1998, the governor of Florida, Lawton Chills, signed the Jimmy Rice Act. The new law gave the state the authority to hold sex offenders in confinement after their prison terms, indefinitely in civil commitment, if they were still considered dangerous. The reasoning of the law reads, in its own words, "The prognosis for rehabilitating sexually violent offenders in a prison setting is poor." This was the state's public admission. The category, written in 1973, had been wrong. Rehabilitation did not work, but the new law does not apply retroactively. Bernard Giles had already been sentenced to life without parole. His file still reads, "Mentally disturbed sex offender requiring periodic evaluation." Whether he is ever actually evaluated, we do not know. The state wrote a word for him. Then the state admitted the word was wrong, but the word remained. Science tried next. In the 1980s, a Canadian psychologist named Robert Hare published a tool that bears his name, the Psychopathy Checklist, revised. The PCLR, 20 questions, scores from 0 to 40, a score of 30 or above, psychopathy. This tool changed criminal psychology. It gave a word to something that had previously been described only in vague terms: cold, unfeeling, without conscience. But in 1974, when Bernard Giles was assessed, the PCLR did not exist. It has never been applied to him. And even if it had, Hare himself has said that his tool describes. It does not explain. It tells us who. It does not tell us why. Then came neuroscience. The criminologist Adrian Raine has spent his career scanning the brains of murderers. His finding is reproducible. Psychopaths have, on average, an 18% smaller amygdala, the brain's fear and empathy center, than controls. The prefrontal cortex, which regulates impulse, also looks different. This sounds like an answer, but Raine has noticed a detail. Serial killers whose acts were planned, like Giles, do not always show the same brain damage as impulsive ones. Their brains work. The functioning is simply directed at something we do not understand. Then came Simon Baron-Cohen. To him, the entire word evil is unnecessary. The answer is the absence of empathy. There is a circuit in the brain. In some people, it does not work. End of story. But this framework meets its own counterexample. Consider another kind of death, a death that some call mercy. In the Netherlands, euthanasia was legalized in 2002. In 2024, almost 10,000 people died there with a doctor's assistance. 5.3% of all deaths in the country. In Belgium, the number was 4,000. In Canada, over 15,000 per year. In one place, a doctor administers a substance into a vein, and a patient dies. This is treatment. It is called mercy. In another place, on another continent, the same act is murder, imprisonment, or the death penalty. The same act, a death caused by another, a different word depending on where it happens and why. If evil is in the act, why is the same act not evil everywhere? If evil is in the motive, and the motive is the ending of suffering, is a mercy killing evil? Is euthanasia? What if the patient can no longer ask and someone decides on their behalf? The framework does not explain the difference. Hare, Raine, Baron-Cohen, Stone, Florida 1973, Florida 1998, the Netherlands 2002. Each one tried. Each one built a word, a category, a scale, a law. Each one needed a concept that could say, this is evil, this is not. Each framework emptied in front of it. One word remains, an old word. So old that we do not usually stop to look at it. Evil. It does not explain. It is what we point at when we do not know what else to point at. Nancy Jerry was 18 years old. After her, 4 more women. 5 deaths in 12 weeks. From September to November 1973. One small town in Florida. The man who did it is still alive. He is 72 years old. He has been in prison for 52 years. He is in Okeechobee Correctional Institution in Florida. His file still reads the same category that the state wrote in 1973 and admitted was wrong in 1998. Mentally disturbed sex offender requiring periodic evaluation. Periodic evaluation, which may never happen. In 2019, he gave an interview. He was asked whether he regretted what he had done. He said he wished he had not killed any of his victims. The journalist described his tone as calm. The words came easily. They did not feel carried. Then the interview ended. Then silence. We have gone through 4 frameworks. The philosophers of ancient Greece, who could not find the word. Augustine, who said evil was the absence of good. Nietzsche, who said the word was an invention. Arendt, who said evil could be dull. Baron Cohen, who said the word was unnecessary. We have gone through Stone's scale, Hare's tool, Raine's brains, Florida's law of 1973, Florida's law of 1998, the Netherlands law of 2002. Each attempt was serious. Each attempt was honest. Each attempt left behind something that does not fit anywhere. Bernard Eugene Giles is one man. What can be said of him has been said. What cannot? That is the question of this episode. The word still exists. We use it. Sometimes we must use it. But behind it lies a silence, one we have not yet learned to fill. What is evil? Sleep tight, dear listeners. If this kept you awake, subscribe.